Scalpel with Dr. Keith Rose.
Cutting down to the truth through history and experience. The Scalpel is proudly sponsored by Z-Bones Bone Conducting Headphones. Learn more at zbones.io. Subscribe to The Scalpel wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at The Scalpel Podcast, on Twitter at The Scalpel Edge. Email kfr@scalpeledge.com or the website scalpeledge.com.
The next episode of The Scalpel starts now.
What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Are you waiting on a lightning strike? Are you waiting for the perfect night? Are you waiting till the time is right? What are you waiting for?
Welcome to The Scalpel. This is Dr. Keith Rose. I apologize. I'm a little worn out today, both physically and emotionally, because me, like a lot of my brothers, have been working around the clock to facilitate people out of Afghanistan, to facilitate American citizens, SIV holders, special immigrant visa holders, and people that actually helped the Americans during our time in Afghanistan, just to help them evacuate since the Taliban had walked into Kabul and had taken over the entire government. Occasionally I'll turn on the news and I'll see something, and I know I'm living in an alternate universe, because what's said on the news is not what's happening on the ground. And the reason I know what's happening on the ground is because I have a lot of people on the ground that I know, relationships that I've built up over 2 decades. Relationships with men and families that just, these people mean a lot to me. They mean a lot to a lot of us that worked over there. And I'm not special in this. There's hundreds of folks that have relationships with families over there that they have built, people that have laid their lives on the line so that a lot of Americans could return home. Some people that just, and I don't want to use any identifiers, that just do good work over there for their people and that have helped thousands of people pursue a better life. What I think a lot of people aren't paying attention to is, while we failed in Afghanistan, we did succeed in one area. In Afghanistan, where we had the highest presence in Kabul, we showed literally a generation of people what it was like to live in a fairly free society. Granted, they have certain mores and traditions that are vastly different from ourselves. But it was a society where people could choose within the confines of their traditions, mores, and religion what they wanted to do. Some families chose to allow their children to marry who they pick. Some families stayed traditional, where the father or the brothers would find the wife for the young man. But all of them shared the opportunity to live freer. They could go to the store, they could buy goods, they could get married at beautiful wedding halls. They could work a job, provide for their family, build a business, no matter how big or small. They could try to make life better. And most importantly, they lived without the fear of someone kicking in their door and dragging off their children or themselves to either be killed, sold into slavery, or made someone else's bride by force. They didn't have to worry about that. For 20 years, that's an entire generation. There are young people in Kabul, Afghanistan, that have never known the fear and the threat of a totalitarian regime in their lifetime. And literally, almost overnight, their new day has turned into a nightmare. Because during that time, President Ghani, in the middle of the night, got on an airplane and left, and with my understanding, with a lot of cash. And he created a vacuum so strong it sucked the Taliban right into Kabul. Now, there have been multiple news reports stating that General Sullivan turned down the offer from the Taliban that the U.S. maintain security in Kabul while we exited the country. In fact, what we're finding out through multiple news sources and eyewitness reports of people that were there or understand what happened in the government, in the military, in the State Department, is that we voluntarily turned over the security of Kabul, Afghanistan, to the Taliban. The same Taliban that is responsible for thousands of deaths of U.S. soldiers. The same Taliban that put bombs on the sides of the road and blew up our young men. The same Taliban that has slaughtered tens of thousands of Afghan soldiers fighting for their country. That same Taliban, we said, come on in and protect us while we leave. If you're listening to this podcast, I hope you share it. Not to get some kind of big numbers, but to educate people on what has happened and what is happening. Because when the Taliban came into Kabul, it started a slow tremor of fear that echoed throughout the entire city. How do I know this? Because I was getting hundreds of phone calls and messages from people that were petrified. At that time, all of us were getting together and trying to get American citizens of Afghan descent, passport holders, into Kabul International Airport, or as we call it, Kaya. We were trying to get special immigrant visa holders into Kaya, interpreters that worked with a lot of the military units, with the Special Forces unit, people that we trained in the legal system there. Ministries of Interior, judges, female judges. We were trying to move people that tried to better their society into an airport to fly them out so that they could at least regroup before they came back to their country when there was a better, more stable security situation. And as we tried to move these people in, most of us met with a lot of roadblocks time and time again. I can't go into a lot of details, but I will tell you a lot of us got through to people in CENTCOM, in the Pentagon, and in high-level military positions. We were connected with people on the field. We had people on the ground with information of people on the field, and we had, quote, someone that would let our people in. But very few of them got through. Some of them did, and we are thankful to God for that, but the majority didn't. It wasn't that we couldn't get them to the door would not be opened. And I don't believe it was just confusion. I believe in my heart there was a lot of malfeasance in the State Department and in the high levels of the military that just didn't care or want to get it done. I don't know about the military, but I can tell you State Department blocked us over and over again. And I wonder why that is. Why is the State Department working so hard to ensure that our Afghan partners cannot leave a country that is being swarmed with an enemy that is sworn to kill them? The Afghan citizens on the ground that helped us. It's not like it was a secret. Now, have been sent videos and pictures in real time from Kabul and from all over Afghanistan. I was sent a video yesterday morning, and at first one of my guys said, I think there was a rocket attack north of the airport in Kabul. And he went there and he took video and he took pictures of a car that was just exploded. And everyone thought a rocket hit it until the U.S. came out and said, we have successfully had a drone strike against a known threat to the airport. We stopped a suicide bomber. And I asked my guy, was there more than one explosion? And he said no. And I had video and pictures of the car. And as the story unfolded right there, he says, I've talked to people. 6 people have been killed, women and children and a man, and 5 have been wounded. And then the reports came out that we had droned some terrorist that was attacking the base with a suicide bomb. And then as the day went on, the reports went to, we're really unsure exactly what we hit. And then this morning, I got a picture of the funeral. 7 coffins. And I posted it on my Twitter account. The man that they killed was someone that was an interpreter for the U.S. forces. Now, I don't know if our drone just made a mistake or they were given in the intelligence surface wrong information. I do know that our State Department and our military have been in communication with the highest levels of the Taliban. How do I know that? Because it's reported by them in the news. And I don't think it's a far jump to imagine that they may have been given bad information and wanting to act on that information, probably to obfuscate the fact that they reportedly killed 2 ISIS planners outside of Jalalabad. Of course, no one's reporting anything happened outside there on the ground. They refused to give us the name of these high-level ISIS planners. And as someone that has a little experience in understanding situations like this, it's very unusual that they would find the planner of a bomb attack 24 hours later and just be able to drone it, especially when we have little or none human intelligence. And they most likely, the intelligence services in our country, probably reached out to Pakistan and asked them for a target. Now, I don't know if they even shot a drone. I haven't seen a video. No one's releasing a name. No one's showing a picture of the missile hitting its mark. And there's precedent for that because we show that all the time. Does anyone remember when President Trump killed Qasem Soleimani? It was done precise. The attack was very precise. It was effective, and there was a team close by of some folks that were able to get what we call a BDA, a battle damage assessment, and we knew for a fact we got Qasem Soleimani. That is how it's done by a real president and real military leadership. Yet no one can even figure out if that drone strike outside Jalalabad, the first one that they said happened after we had the tragic explosion in front of the gate that killed 13 American servicemen and women. They just stated they had a drone strike and that there were no other problems with that drone strike. And then when someone asked them, who did you strike? They said, we're not going to tell you. They said, can we see a picture? They said, no. And I'm paraphrasing. Yet all the other times when there was a drone strike, it was reported. See, it's not normal what's happening. And then the next day, evidently we had another drone strike to protect our troops, yet that drone strike hit a family and someone that worked for us. I have a feeling that we are being set up time and time again because we have a feckless leadership in Washington, D.C. and in the highest levels of our military and intelligence services. And the American people, I believe, need to wake up and pay attention. Because right now, there are a lot of guns going off in the skies of Kabul, Afghanistan. I'm getting reports that the skies are lit up. No one's being attacked. They just said the last plane of Americans have left the base. And I had known about that when the wheels were up because that's a report that I got. And there are thousands of American citizens, not 250. I believe there are thousands of American citizens and Afghans that helped us. The terror is becoming all too palpable. I know my phone's been getting blown up, and a lot of guys I know's phones are blown up because these people are panicking. They don't know what to do. They have been abandoned in their time of need, and I can promise you they didn't abandon us in our time of need. And what we have done as a nation is immoral, and it's wrong. This morning, I got a video sent to me from someone in Nangarhar province, and they said, Abdul Haq, the head security chief for Osama bin Laden, is in Afghanistan. I immediately posted it on Twitter. They said it happened 4 hours ago. And I thought, well, this is what's reported. This is the guy. I didn't know if the picture was taken in Pakistan or not, but then the BBC and the British Daily Mail both confirmed about 6 hours later, yes, it was Abdul Haq, and he was returning to Afghanistan. And the only reason he would do that is to celebrate the humiliation and the fulfillment of his boss, Osama bin Laden's quest to destroy America. And I'm here to tell you today, I believe our State Department and our leadership in Washington, D.C. has aided and abetted in that quest. A lot of people think it was done just by sheer galactic stupidity and limitless incompetence. And while I think they have a lot of that, I also think that there may have been something much more nefarious driving their actions. That was literally standing with Amarullah Saleh and Masood as they're up in the Panjshir, planning the resistance against this tyrannical regime, the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and all these foreign fighters and ISIS-K or whatever we want to talk about. They made the comment that they wished the military would have left them the ammunition depot that we had up in the Panjshir. And I asked them to explain, and this is what they told me. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what they said they saw. That the military, we sent some people up there to blow up this ammo depot that they could have used in a resistance, but the military told them they had strict orders, they had to destroy it, even to the protests of Amarullah Saleh and Masood. So they blew up that depot. And now we know the rest of the story because they left the ammunition and equipment on Bagram Airfield intact. They could have blown up all the ammunition. There's a place on Bagram just to do that, to detonate unexploded ordnance or to get rid of ammunition. There's a spot there. They could have done it. They didn't. They left it. And my understanding is they left in the middle of the night, and they didn't even tell their military Afghan counterparts. But I can tell you who they did tell. They told the Taliban. Because I happen to understand what the Taliban were told. I'm not going to explain to you why, but I know some people that know some of the low-level Taliban, and they were calling us, telling us the Americans have left the base. Yet the next day when the Afghan army commander arrived to the base, the Americans were gone, and he was perplexed. He may have arrived a little earlier because I understand someone, I don't know who, might have called him and said, hey, the Americans are gone. That's what the Taliban are saying. And so they rushed out there, and it was a race to the base. But in the end, the Taliban got the equipment, and nothing was left for the resistance. Because I believe, based on all these things, denying people that would fight the Taliban ammunition and giving arms and ammunition to the Taliban. And let me put this in perspective. What was left at Bagram Airfield is roughly 80% of all the weapons that we have given Israel to date. I've heard that in a couple reports. Now, I can't verify that myself, but the people that I heard say that were some pretty smart people that understand what is going on. So we overnight armed the Taliban. And why? Why is the State Department so adamant in not letting Afghan citizens leave? Why are the Taliban so adamant in surrounding the airport and keeping Afghans from leaving and keeping Afghan citizens, American citizens of Afghan origin, from leaving? And why are we letting them do that? And why are we treating the Taliban like they're a legitimate government on the world stage? These are very serious questions because I believe the Taliban want to create the next caliphate right there in Afghanistan. They're creating a terrorist superstate. And I'm sure China's extremely happy because they came out and supported the Taliban today. It gives China a direct route across Afghanistan into Iran to a deep water port in the Mediterranean. It gives China access to rare earth minerals that they need, that they don't have. It gives China access to copper that they desperately need, that they don't have. And it allows China to have a continuation of their Silk Road and build out their policy, strategy, and objectives, and at the same time humiliate and cause America to lose face, which means a lot to China. But I think China, Russia, and everyone else supporting the Taliban are missing the bigger point here. Because when Abdul Haq came in, I think for the celebration and what we understand, over 6,000 foreign fighters are in the country and have been pouring in for the past year and a half, covertly and quietly, despite a lot of reports to our military and intelligence services that I believe weren't taken seriously or stovepipe or just people didn't care. You're creating a terrorist superstate that is now armed. And people laugh and say they'll never understand how to use the helicopters. They'll never understand how to use the equipment. Oh, they will with their Chinese military trainers or Chinese or Russian military trainers that I'm sure they would welcome in to help them build up their military in Afghanistan, that being the Taliban. So now we leave in abject humiliation from a country that we had 2,500 people and no deaths in the past year. We leave with more unforced errors than anyone can understand. There are reports coming out right now that a Marine, a General Sullivan, made his Marines delay their departure from Afghanistan because he required them to clean the base for the Taliban prior to exfil. And those are multiple reports from Marines that were there. Now, are they verified? I don't know, but I'm seeing the reports and I'm seeing the text chat rooms that are talking about it. But what this does is it paints a picture. It paints a picture of not just massive incompetence. It paints a picture of an administration that is allowing a terrorist network to gain legitimacy. We know the Haqqanis are there, and the Haqqanis have bounties on their heads. Siraj Haqqani does by the State Department. Several al-Qaeda that are there have bounties on their head by the State Department. It seems, though, that our State Department is looking the other way. The same people that looked the other way in Iraq when ISIS came to power. The same Obama State Department that is currently working for the Biden State Department that turned their heads and allowed a caliphate to just be created under our eyes and under our noses. That was until President Trump came to office and obliterated them during his tenure. But the same people that gave birth to ISIS in Iraq now have plugged in the incubator and provided all the fertilizer the new caliphate needs to grow and become a legitimate presence in the Middle East. If that is the case, I can't begin to tell you how wrong, immoral, and treasonous that is. And I pray it's not, but what I see going on in our nation today, I don't know how it's not true. Because we saw American citizens blown up and killed, and we did nothing. We tucked and we ran, and I can promise you there's not one soldier on that base in the rank and file and the low-level officers that didn't want to fight. We could have taken back Bagram in a heartbeat. We could have brought in tactical air, and it might have taken a month or 2 months, but we could have done what we should have done in the first place. We could have fired some generals that made mistakes because there's precedent for that throughout our history, just not our recent history. Eisenhower fired generals. Lyndon Johnson fired generals. But generals today seem to get promoted not by competence on the battlefield, not by competence in leadership and strategy, but just by, their attention to equity and the military-industrial complex. Because now generals just move on to a retirement where I guess it involves a plane, a ranch, and a board seat, and they're set for life. Yet this kind of rotten decay at the highest levels of our military, intelligence services, and government has given us a nation that is on the edge, and they're trying to divide us. But I pray that the DNA of true patriots will not let this happen. That people will not turn to government, but they will turn to God. That they will see the decay of our leaders and recognize we as a nation have to turn back to the founding, and we have to turn back to the morality that brought our nation out of the abyss and allowed it to form in the first place. I believe if we do that as a nation, if we recognize what we've done wrong, if we repent, that we can find favor once again before God, that we can find the grace that we need to build back, not better, but to build back a nation that provides freedom and a beacon of light for the entire world to see. When that C-17 left Kabul airfield, when we first started the evacuation, we saw thousands of Afghans running across the field. Everyone was reaching for the doors, holding on. Several held on so tight that when the airplane was climbing out, they held on till they couldn't do it anymore, and several of them fell to their death. They did it because they knew that plane was going to a place where they would not be persecuted and they would be free. If we as American citizens don't change course, hold our leaders accountable, and step out in truth, there won't be a plane for us to chase down a runway and hold on to, because there'll be nowhere else to go. President Ronald Reagan said, we are always one generation away from freedom. And we may be on the precipice right now. But I believe if we recognize our mistakes, we hold our leaders accountable, we get out and peacefully protest the current situations we're seeing both in our country and around the world, what we have done, that we will remain the greatest, freest nation in the world. But it's going to take us rolling up our sleeves, stepping outside and saying enough. No more. We have the numbers, and we have the moral foundation to do this because we are speaking truth and we are right. Too many people have looked at this administration and say, I can't believe what they're doing. Well, let me tell you, believe it. And if you want to change it, step out and say something. If millions of Americans take to the street, and I mean peacefully, we have to be peaceful and say no more to this foreign policy that is destroying our nation, no more to these vaccine mandates, no more to these corporations that are basically just doing the work of government, no more to a medical bureaucracy that doesn't look at the science and is causing destruction of the most vulnerable amongst us, the youth and our children, through their mass mandates, their forced vaccinations, or their threat of this. If we look at the truth and we follow our hearts, we can stay or return to that shining light on a hill for all the world to see. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I apologize I got this done a little late. I've been up a long time working. Please pray for all these folks that are trying to get out of Afghanistan. I know there's a great group of patriots. We're not going to quit. We don't know how to. We're going to do everything we can for those that helped us and those Americans that are left behind. We're going to do it legally. We're going to do it peacefully, but we're going to try to get these folks out using the relationships we have over there to hopefully and prayerfully get these folks to an area where they can have the chance to live free. Wake up, pay attention. It is the only way that we are going to keep freedom rolling.
Head high, protest line, freedom scribbled on your sign. Headline, New York Times, standing on the edge of a revolution. Hey, hey, just obey, your secret's safe with the NSA. In God we trust, or the CIA, standing on the edge of a revolution.
with Dr. Keith Rose.
The Scalpel is proudly sponsored by Z-Bones Bone Conducting Headphones. Learn more at zbones.io. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to The Scalpel wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at The Scalpel Podcast, on Twitter at The Scalpel Edge. Email kfr@scalpeledge.com or the website scalpeledge.com.